everyone, I'm Jocelyn, and I am grateful you're here. You're listening to the Starting with Gratitude podcast. This is a safe space intended to host meaningful conversations exploring all topics of the human experience. Every conversation starts with gratitude and remains rooted in gratitude. After you listen, make sure to join the community by subscribing and sharing. I am so happy you have joined us. Hello, Jennifer. How is your heart feeling in this moment?
I'm kind of like in a very interesting place, it's good, it's okay. It's not where I want it to be, but it's, it's like one of those days, but I know that it's going to get better. So my heart's kind of like a little bit everywhere, and I guess.
Yeah, like what first came to me right now is like your heart is wanting a little extra like pep talk and encouragement and love from you.
Mm-hmm.
I totally feel that. And I'm excited to drop even further into the heart space in this conversation. But before we do so, I'm going to ask you to share with us what it is that you feel grateful for.
I really love that you start every podcast that way or your interview that way. I feel like it's really intentional, really beautiful. And it actually made me think of like, oh, I don't start my days off like that. I feel like I should. So this was really great. So thank you. What I wrote down is I am really grateful for another day. I feel like it's another day of just trying my best. And that's what I'm grateful of, because it's like, okay, cool. Maybe yesterday and last week was a little rocky, but today doesn't have to be that way. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something honestly that has helped me personally so much is like acknowledging that my best is going to show up differently every day and just putting in that effort and acknowledging my effort of doing my best each day and like allowing that to be enough at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I love that you shared that with us. How would you describe this current season of your life?
This current season of my life, I feel like has been kind of like it was like a no filter, no distractions, just kind of like a me to me, face to face, like realization, kind of like, all right, this is us, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense. This season was more of like I don't want to sound like Kylie Jenner. I was like realizing things. I did realize a lot of things, but I feel like this season was kind of all about me, all about my mental health, recognizing, unhealthy coping patterns that I need to like work on, kind of like a realization of like, okay, you're not broken. You're able to kind of move forward from your, unhealed parts, your trauma parts and stuff like that. And it was also a season where I really felt like I even surprised myself. I started doing a lot of things outside of my comfort, and I was just like, "Oh, I'm kind of good at this. I should probably keep going." So it was a lot of that, a lot of like realization of like, okay, we got to do some inner healing work for sure, but also and obviously in a positive light of like, oh, I'm capable of like a lot of things. And it's great and it's beautiful to even see that and to be very like, wow, this is cool. You could do it.
Yeah, yeah. So would you say that those themes are like still taking place right now for you?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, the way that I interpret that is like you feeling like you're being called to transform into a new Jennifer, but knowing that like while you are transforming and like doing these new things, you still have to like take care of like these things over here and heal them and confront them so that you can like properly really transition into this new space.
Yeah, I 1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say? You mentioned that like you've been having realizations, and I would love for you to share with us if you're open, like what has been one of your most cherished or your favorite realizations that you've had recently about yourself?
At least for me, I feel like imposter syndrome is so real. I think a lot of folks, we experience that. And it comes from obviously a lot of different places. And for me, as a creative person, I'm a model, but I also do other creative things. And this year, I really started kind of doing things behind the scenes. So I was a director. I've done styling. I've done I produced a lot of stuff, so I've been kind of like behind the scenes this year at least. I still model, but I guess being behind the scenes is just kind of like a new role, and just being really in awe of the fact that like, oh wait, I could do this. Like I have a good eye, and trusting myself. I think that was like the biggest thing of like, oh, I should trust myself in like being able to like take these jobs or like handle these different projects because I'm capable of doing it, opposed to being like, oh, like I can't do that because, well, I'm not like a super creative person, or like, oh, well, I didn't go to school for this, or like, oh, well, would I know? It's like, no, like I have the experience, I have the eye, I have the drive, I have the passion for it, and it shows. And obviously, I didn't do this alone. And I think that's something that's really important. I did it with like my friends and my community, and literally my friends that are also like within that industry that were like, yeah, like let's do it. Let's do it together. And I feel like being able to first start it off with my friends was really nice, a really nice introduction. And that then it just kind of bloomed into like, oh, I could do this outside of, my friends. I could do this like if I have a brand that's like, yo, like we need a creative director, yo, we need a stylist, like, are you down? I'm like, yeah, I'm down. So that's been something that, I really liked and cherished this year. I feel like I started trusting myself a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's been great. It's been beautiful. It's been beautiful to see myself like blossom and grow, and not put myself in a little box of like, this is my thing and this is the only thing I do. It's like, no, I could do a lot of things. I'm such a multifaceted person, and I feel like everybody has different sides of them. And I feel like this year I was able to really, really, really nurture that part of myself, which was really beautiful and great. And I'm
Yeah.
grateful for that.
Yeah, yeah. So it seems like there's been this duality of I can do these things, I'm capable of doing these things, but also realizing that in doing those new things, that perhaps it triggered the imposter syndrome, and like also realizing like, okay, this is coming up. I have to take care of this. Would
Yeah.
you say that that is what has been bringing up the imposter syndrome, is like trying these new things that have been outside of like what you regular have been doing?
Yeah, it's definitely has brought it up for sure. I even like talked to my friends about it, and even friends that are like my photographer friends, my model friends, like everybody. Literally, I feel like even people that are not in the creative scene either. I have a friend that works at a nonprofit, and it's the same thing of like, are we kidding ourselves? Like, can we actually do this? Like, oh no. And it comes and it goes. I think that's also a big thing about imposter syndrome. It comes and it goes, and sometimes it comes when you least expect it, and you're just like, not today. Not today, because I just can't. And that's been something that I for sure have been like kind of like dealing with and trying to take care of myself and like being very gentle with myself with, because at the end of the day, like imposter syndrome is valid to some points, but also it's kind of like it literally blinds you from all the greatness that you are and that you're capable of. And I think that's what stops people. And that's something that I don't ever want that to happen to me or to my friends or to my loved ones, that they stop themselves because they believe themselves in thinking that they can't do anything or they're not capable of doing what they want to, because dreams are achievable.
In healing the imposter syndrome and other things that you're healing, what Jennifer are you shedding?
Yeah, so for me right now, the Jennifer that I'm shedding is basically, the one that is a little bit shy to ask for help, the Jen that's very like that can be a little bit insecure, or the Jen that like double like second guesses herself and like is like, I have this great idea, but I'm not gonna do it because I'm too scared or like no one's gonna like it. And now I'm transforming and transitioning to someone that's like, you know what, like just go for it. You never know what could happen. It could be great. Like it's a post of like I'm transitioning to like, what if it all goes wrong mentality to like, but what if it could be great?
Yeah. Like, what if it all works out? What if it all goes right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually have a post-it note on my desk that it says exactly that because I need that reminder too. Is like when I catch myself like thinking of like, oh, but like if it doesn't work out, or like what if this is the wrong investment, or you never, and just switching that to like, but what if it does go the way that you envision it, or even better, or it connects you to a certain relationship or opportunity that leads you somewhere where you're meant to be? So I love that. And something that I find really beautiful about you being, open about sharing this and this season with us is maybe with models in particular, because models are like in front of the camera and it's about beauty and it's like, like you and people may have the perception or make the assumption that, they are, 100% confident and they're like not, don't have any insecurities and they're,
Mhm.
do you feel like you've experienced that projection on you, or you've like taken note of that as a model?
Yeah, for sure. I actually have gotten like, how are you so confident? And I'm just like, girl, if you only knew what goes in my head, like, and I think that is kind of like a misconception of like models that like, yeah, like y'all are confident 24/7. It's like, at least me, I can only speak to like my experience. And it's like, no, there's not, I wish oh my God, my life would be so easier if I was confident 24/7, but it's not. I feel like that's just not realistic, right? But it's my job obviously to make sure that like I'm cool and I'm handling, my insecurities in a really healthy way. But yeah, I get that a lot. I've definitely have gotten like messages from folks like, how do you gain your confidence, and like how do you, and like modeling, like, yeah, you do have to be comfortable in the camera, because if you're not comfortable in the camera, it reads off. You could tell.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like, in the beginning of my modeling career, y'all should see my photos. It was they were silly, but I was like, you know what? Like, I still want to do it. Like, who cares? And for me, I started building my confidence in modeling a little bit more because I just kept on doing it. I also started modeling with my friend. So I had my friend who's a photographer who would just take photos of me. And obviously, I was already comfortable with my friend that it just kind of blossomed through there. And then I started getting like, you know, other folks hitting me up, and I just started building my confidence in modeling. But definitely, there's days where I'm just kind of like, I don't want to be in front of the camera. Like, I don't want to wear 10 pounds of makeup. Like, I don't want to get my hair done today. Like, I feel not my best self, but I have to kind of like, you know what, like suck it up and just, it's a job at the end of the day, right? I feel like it's modeling is a job just like any other job. I'm pretty sure folks don't feel super confident sometimes at jobs too. And I do get that a lot when people are like, how do you build your confidence? I'm just like, girl, it is a day-to-day thing. Some days I do feel great and amazing. I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, yes. And then there's moments where I'm just like, oh my God, oh my God, is this how we look like today? But what matters, obviously, what matters in the inside. Because if you don't feel so great, it's going to project outside. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a thing for sure. And I'm just like, you just gotta love yourself. You gotta try.
As you were sharing that light with us regarding the modeling, it kind of, for me, the way that I'm seeing it from the outside looking in now is like you're kind of experiencing like a full circle moment in a way, because, you stepping into modeling, you had the introductory with like your friends, and you're experiencing that again as you're doing something new, doing with your friends. And I think it's also important to acknowledge that, like, as you try something new, building the confidence is also going to be a practice in general. So I kind of see how that, like, pattern is kind of like coming up again for you as you're like stepping into something new. And it's great that the universe has aligned you with opportunities to like get into these new things, like with your friends, because it does make it more comfortable and more approachable and like allows you to like build that confidence, like we're speaking of. Aside from, imposter syndrome, you mentioned, prior to this call that you have been, confronting some hard truths.
Mm-hmm.
What are, if you feel open to sharing, some of the hard truths that you're currently confronting?
Yeah, at least for me, it has to deal with like relationships, like friendships, my, romantic relationships, my relationship with myself, my family relationships. I feel like I've been really focusing on like how I communicate, which is really interesting. My attachment styles, which is really, that one is a trip. A lot of inner healing work, but also like I think for the first time in a long time, I'm actually like trying to take care of my inner child and actually acknowledging that I have an inner child and really trying to like heal through that. Because I feel like this time around, since I am around obviously community and being around my friends and with my loved ones it is a big thing in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I, in my work and not my work, like friends and family are just huge parts of my life. I love love. I'm a Cancer. I love love so much. And having those relationships being healthy is something that's really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, sometimes, communication styles, attachment styles kind of get all in the way, all in the mix. And it's like, whoa, wait, hold up. I was being kind of avoidant there. I don't have to be avoidant. I could literally just tell you how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
What if I just try that? It doesn't have to be explosive. Interesting. So
Yeah.
that's where all of my stuff has been, and I feel like it may seem kind of like elementary. I feel like I should have been done this, but that's just where I'm at with like my healing. And what I've been really face to face with is just like communicating. How is your inner child wounds kind of coming up, and how are they being projected onto people that you love, or just things like that, which is just kind of like another big kind of worms of like, oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. The healing, when you step into it and when you like actually make the conscious decision to like invest in it, it can feel overwhelming at first sometimes because you're like starting to realize all these things and you're reflecting at the same time that you're learning. And I can relate to so much of that. And I actually find it so interesting as I have these conversations and just conversations in general with family and friends. I notice that this has been coming up for so many people, is the reflecting on relationships and communication and how we could have, you know, been healthier in the way that we express ourselves and the way we love ourselves and how important that is and how that is manifested in everything outside of us. I feel called to ask you, because I can relate to all of this, is like, I know that, looking back before I felt called to get into all of this healing myself, that there were like a series of events that took place that kind of led me to here. Do you feel like there were like a series of events that took place that were like kind of breaking you down to this point of like, okay, like I am committing to my healing now?
For me, this year has been really great, a lot of blessings, and I'm really happy about it. However, this was kind of like the first full year where like I wasn't tied to like a 9 to 5. I wasn't like, it was very just me. Not a lot of distractions, just me. And it was kind of scary because it was just a lot of like, unknown stuff. like, what am I going to do next month? Like, how am I going to get my bills paid? Like, being a creative, it's always up and down. Being freelance is always up and down. And this was like my first year of being like completely freelance. And it's been great. But when I'm not booked, it's like, that financial like scarcity of like, I need money because also I need to survive. Like, it's not even because I want to be rich and greedy. I do want to be rich, but like I need to survive.
Yeah.
Um, so that's where I feel like I did have a lot of downtime of like, oh, great. And obviously like this year around too, like I feel like my friends have been really important people in my life. And obviously it's been kind of a hard year for me. I feel like I could say that and be really honest, and still being loved by my friends, even though like it's been a low year. And that kind of made me like, oh, these people love you. And my family too, and other people that have came into my life that have been really great and amazing. Yeah, so that's how it kind of broke down to a point where I had to kind of hit a little bit of like a rock bottom. I feel like at least a rock bottom for me, where I was like, just, not having a fun time anymore. I was really like, spewing out, projecting, like just lashing out, and like it was just not like something that I was like, this isn't me, or like this isn't something that I want to continue doing, or like just being like, you could do better. And having that realization of just kind of like, oh, it's because of this and this and this and this that you haven't worked through, which is like, there's a reason why you haven't worked through it. It's not easy, but you need to. Because if you want these people in your life and you want to love them just as much as they're loving you, you have to kind of like really step up to the plate. And that was kind of like my calling of like, I don't want to be alone. Even though my full like my like when I'm like really low, I want to push people away, and I'm just like, get away. I'm unlovable. Don't look at me. Like, oh, like get away, get away, get away. But understanding that comes from somewhere that's not great, and that like you could still obviously still be kind of low, but also like still be loving and great, and like let your friends and your family and your loved ones know like, hey, this is what I'm going through right now, and like I'm trying my best. And sometimes your friends are most all the time their friends are like, what do you need, or like how can I help, and obviously is at their capacity, which I love. Every time I talk to my best friend, I'm like, do you have capacity right now? And they're like, yeah. So then and sometimes they don't, and that's totally okay. It's not anything personal. It's just like everyone is going through their own stuff. Like everyone is literally dealing with life the way that so it's been a lot of that. And I remember I had a partner who asked me like, what do you need from me? Like, how can I help you? Like, I want to make sure that you're good. And I remember being like, what? You're asking me this? Like, this is crazy. Like, what? Wow. And I'm just like, it's literally like a basic minimum shit. But that's where it kind of also clicked of like, okay, what do you need? And then I started like asking myself, what do I need? Because I couldn't even answer to like my partner at that time, like, this is what I need,
Yeah. There's a few things that are coming up for me as you shared this. And one thing is like, I had asked you what series of events kind of led to you being like, okay, I need to confront myself. I need to heal. And it seems like the series of events essentially got you to the point where it's like, okay, it's me, myself, and I right now. Like, I am alone. This is me. I have like more of this like space and time to like be with myself and not have as many distractions. The other thing that came up for me is just that expression of love that is shown in our friendships when they accept us the way that we are when we feel like we're not our best selves, or when we feel like we don't have as much to offer per se. And like they're still accepting, they're still loving, and they're still present. And it's just like, it really does make you feel like, dang, I'm
Like,
loved,
I'm
I'm
loved.
supported. Yeah. And it's such a blessing to have that, like that's something that I personally have also experienced over the past couple of years, is just like that love from friendships. And it's just like really made me cherish my friends so much more, and just value genuine friendship so much more, because it's like, it really contributes to your healing, when people accept you in those seasons of your life. And lastly, when you brought up your past partner who had asked you what help you wanted, and you didn't really know how to respond to that. I feel like a lot of really independent women, and brown women, Black women, first gen women can relate to that. And I think there's a lot to unpack there regarding like, not knowing how to answer someone offering their help, or what it is that you need exactly. It's like, what do I need? Like I've been so occupied with just providing and taking care of things, where it's like, well, what do I need? Where am I needing, my cup to be filled? Yeah. So kind of getting into relationships, if you're open to talking a bit about that. As I was kind of researching you a little bit, I saw a couple of things that I kind of wanted to bring up. One, someone had asked you like what your favorite zodiac signs are, and you said Pisces, Scorpio, Capricorn, and Aries, because they have like the intensity and emotionalness that you do as a Cancer. And then when someone asked you for relationship advice, you had shared, to make sure that your partner contributes to your happiness, isn't like the sole provider of your happiness. And that kind of leeway into you bringing up like the codependency. So relationships.
Love. I adore love. I think love is amazing, but it's
Yeah, I know. So I'm a Scorpio,
Love it.
and I 100% know what you're referring to when you say intensity and emotionalness. I would love to kind of bring up, how that intensity has either been of disservice or service to you in your relationship. So, how has your relationship with your own intensity or your own emotions been in your relationships?
Yeah, I know. I love hard. I know this. I know this about myself. I'm Cancer, and I think it's a beautiful thing. I also am someone that grew up watching a lot of rom-coms, probably way too many for my own good. I grew up reading a lot of books, So there in itself, I already have this like romanticized idea of what love is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in reality, that's not how it works at all. Love is literally accepting that person for who they are, and not projecting your own like, oh, this is your role in my life, and this is the character you're going to play, which is so crazy and chaotic for me to say. But that was the old me, okay? So let me be clear. That was the old me. And the older I get, the more, I date, the more I meet people, the more I realize what love actually is. And it's like acceptance, right? It's understanding. It's really just like communicating, understanding other people's traumas that come up. Because at the end of the day, like when you're with someone, it's not that you're responsible for their trauma, but like though their trauma, your traumas kind of just are a part of like the mix, right? And being able to like work through that. And having partners that are willing to work through that, right? I've also definitely had partners that were just kind of like, what are you talking about? I don't have no trauma. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And for me, the intensity, I feel like I've always been someone that loves really hard. I give my all. And in the healthy side, it's like I'm very understanding. I'm gonna love you, unconditionally, but now to like a certain extent, I have my boundaries. In the not so healthy intensity, it's more of like, yeah, like the codependency of like, you're my person. And it's like, no, that person is not your whole world. You are still your own individual outside of that. You have to remind yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where like codependency kind of happened, or it is where codependency starts stemming from. And centering this person to be like your whole universe when that's obviously like not healthy, losing yourself in a relationship, which is, sometimes it is a disservice to yourself because you just, it's just like, well, where did I go? So yeah, that's where, at least as a Cancer, my intensities levels of like, I love really hard, but also like there's boundaries that still need to be respected and placed. And it's always really a beautiful thing when you are with someone that like is reciprocal of that intensity. That's why I like love dating like Pisces, Scorpios, all of them. Because I like that mutuality of like, I love you and you love me. And it's like, I'm not scared to show you that I love you. And for me, love languages are important. I think one of my main ones is like quality time, physical touch, and words of affirmation. Those are like one of my favorite. I do like a gift here and there. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, buy me a chain. Yes, whatever. JK, JK. Anyways, or even like acts of service. I think those are great too. But I know, at least for me now, where I'm at right now, because I think love languages kind of change throughout.
Mm-hmm.
They change. But for me, it's quality time. And we don't have to do anything. I love just like hanging out. Like I'm also a big homebody too, but I'm also not a homebody. And I also love telling people like, I love you, I care about you, and this is why. And physical touch, like I want to hold your hand, I want to cuddle, like kiss me in the forehead, like hug me, hug me.
Yeah, yeah. I have the same love languages. Like quality time and words of affirmation are so important to me. And I've noticed that in myself too. And my last relationship was with a Cancer and a Scorpio moon. So that was the first time that I dated another water sign. And I loved the intensity in the way of like us openly sharing that intensity with each other, where we understand, we understand that shared intensity. But
Yeah, yeah, I know.
yeah, so the codependency actually, for me was, when that relationship ended last year, mid last year, and I got into my shadow work, healing my codependency is actually like was one of my biggest focuses, because I realized that like I kind of always knew like in my relationships, because I had noticed this pattern of me losing myself in them, and like losing myself and like not prioritizing myself and my needs as much. So last year I was like, all right, we're getting to the bottom of this. And recently on my birthday, I finally bought myself a book. I think it's called Attached, because I'm like, I have to learn these attachment styles, I told myself. So here I am, 28, learning about attachment styles, like officially for the first time. But it's so great, when you finally find yourself like leaning into these things and taking accountability for yourself and like knowing like this is what I need to heal and this is what I've noticed in myself. And when you shared with us that you would, kind of create these, I guess, like characters of like who your partner should be and like what kind of role they should fill.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds crazy when you say it, but it's so common for so many people, you know, like not even just in relationships, just in general, of like
Yeah.
having these labels placed on other people. And when they don't fill that role that you have for them in your head, it detriments the relationship in some way. And yeah, so I just wanted to affirm you in that it's like, it sounds crazy, but it's actually not crazy because it's so normal for so many of us. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love love though. I think it's great and it's beautiful, but that intensity of like, yeah. I feel like when water signs date, it's amazing and beautiful, but it could be a little bit, when it's not amazing and great, it could be like, oh, okay. All right, cool.
Yeah. What would you say now that you're kind of in this season of prioritizing yourself and facing yourself? And you know these things about yourself moving forward, what's important to you in your relationships and how do you want to navigate them differently?
I think for me right now, that's what's important moving forward with like romantic relationships or even just friendships. It's just being like present. I've definitely also have been someone that has self-sabotaged a lot of relationships, friendships, whatever, because of self-sabotaging behaviors. And self-sabotage literally stems from feeling like I don't deserve this or like I'm not enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's been something that I've kind of learned to, really realize of like, wait, I am deserving of this love. I am enough. Like, I don't need to like self-sabotage. I don't need to wait to get rejected because I'm not going to get rejected. And if I do get rejected, that's okay. It has nothing to do with me. And just being able to kind of like not be so pressed on holding it and just kind of like, or being pressed on control and just letting it go and being present and just enjoying the moment. And I feel like that's been something that I've learned to kind of like bring into like my next or my current relationships and friendships and things like that. Just being present and allowing yourself to be loved because you deserve it and you're enough, and stop telling yourself that you're not enough and you don't deserve it because you're being really silly right now and your brain's being really mean to you and it doesn't have to. I have a Virgo moon, so for all my Virgo moon babies, y'all know. Rough.
Yeah. I love that you're highlighting like just being present for it because I think that, it's returning like to the present moment is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful thing you can do. I was telling a friend the other day that I'm starting to believe that the like cheat code to this life thing is like literally just being present.
I agree. I literally agree. I feel like the amount of times that I've literally kind of went through autopilot in my lifetime because I was so stuck in my head literally took me from living my life, which is so sad. And it's such a really like intense realization, at least for me, because I realized that like I'm always so in my head all the time
Mm-hmm.
that it keeps me from literally enjoying my day because I somehow spiraled into like telling myself that like this is terrible, this is all bad, and it's all in your head,
Mm-hmm.
and when once you start switching that switch of like viewing things in a different way opposed to like, well, what if things go right, or like, my anxiety is like, this person hasn't texted me, they must be mad at me, or like, oh, I haven't talked to my friend in a week, they must be mad at me, opposed to just being like, they're literally probably just busy, and then you text them and they're like, yo, my bad, I'm busy, you're like, oh.
Yeah, letting go of the tendency to like create assumptions in your head. Yeah, it is wild. Like when you start really leaning into the practice of bringing yourself into the present moment, and you start realizing how much time you've spent your whole life, like either being stuck in the past or like fixated on the future and worrying about it, stressing about it. It's like, whew, when all we really have is like this moment happening right now. Yeah. And I think something that's beautiful about, us progressing through this conversation is that it kind of really goes back to like the fact that this is all a practice, everything really is a practice. And, I want to ask you, as you've been in this season of healing and learning these things about yourself and attachment styles and the codependency and being present and stepping out and doing new things and affirming yourself that you're worthy of them, what practices have been grounding you, or what have you been leaning into that has been helping you heal and helping you grow?
Yeah. So obviously, number one is therapy. Shout out to my therapist. Amazing. So that's always been something that I knew I always needed, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do this without professional help. Because at least for me, I don't want to self-diagnose myself. I feel that like I need someone to literally guide me, because I feel like I'm able to tell you where it comes from or whatever, but then I'm just like, I have all of this. What do I do? Help me. So that's been, I feel like my number one, my going to therapy and constant going to therapy, practicing all the coping habits that me and my therapist have talked about, which is basically like, when I first, they say I'm a professional spiraler because I can spiral really bad, and it's something that we're working on or whatever. And for me, when I start having that like intrusive thought, is more of just kind of like training myself to be like, no, don't, or just kind of like, okay, let me observe it. It's a thought. I don't have to feed into it. And that's kind of like, sometimes I have to like distract myself. It just depends, right, on the day. Some days it's like, okay, whatever, like I'm busy, I don't have to do anything. Or some days I actually have to like get up and clean, or I have to get up and like, you know what, I'm gonna go eat, or like, you know what, I'm gonna go call my friend and just like talk about something else, like kind of like putting that energy into something else, or like, you know what, I don't have to think about this. I could do something creative and it's gonna bring me more happiness, and like I could think of other things that makes me feel happy. So a big thing of like, because it's all about energy, right? If anything you do is just energy, your thoughts or whatever. And for me, it's been kind of like, all right, if I'm starting to feel really low, like I'm going to quickly do something that makes me really happy. And that's like reading a book, or sometimes making content, or like, talking to a friend, watching a movie, going on a date, doing my hair, like dressing, or even like dressing. Sometimes I'm like in my PJs all day. I have nowhere to go, but I'm just like, you know what? I should dress up. And I dress up and I'm like, wow, you look great.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, I don't even go anywhere, but somehow that makes me feel good. I'm just like, you still got it, baby. Look at you. You don't gotta look sad. You don't gotta be sad. So that's been kind of like the ways that I cope. It depends. There's so many different ways that I cope, and I try to cope my best. At least for me too, is also like, substances. So like alcohol, trying to limit that, because at least for me with alcohol, and I'll be very transparent, like it's not a fun time, especially not right now. And that's something that I've been able to kind of recognize and be okay with, and like be like, you know what, maybe this is like my sober era, and that's completely fine. And I'm surrounded by people that don't pressure me to drink. They're like, all right, cool. Like I still go to bars. I still go out and party. I'm just drinking like a ginger beer. Or I'm drinking coffee so I could like stay up, because if not, I'm going to be like, I'm sleepy. So something like that, and like actually placing boundaries of like, okay, like if this thing makes you not so great, then maybe you don't have to do it. And that's okay. And it doesn't make you, I feel like, when I first, started thinking of being sober, a lot of it was kind of like that, like negative of like, like that's bad. Like only certain people are sober, but it's like, no. And it's just stigma. And there's been moments, I've been like on and off sober. Like some moments like, all right, I'm in a good mental state where I could like enjoy a beer, or I could like drink, like it's fine. But there's also been moments where I'm like, all right, girl, I see where this is going. And you have like, what are you going to do? We've been here before. Like you could chill. And I'm like, you're right. We could chill.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's been one. And I think for me, So if anybody ever was trying to go sober, go for it. If you don't want to, that's okay too. Like, I don't judge. But at least for me, I know that that was something that I have to be very like intentional with. That was like, all right now is maybe gonna be a good time. And that's okay.
Yeah. It's everything that you shared is really like goes back to just like being mindful of like where you're directing your energy, because you're so right. Like everything really is energy, and you know, where your attention goes, that energy flows. And if you're like building onto an assumption, like that energy is going to get stronger if you build on, you know, so it is important to like catch it. And if you feel called to observe it, observe it. But sometimes it is important to like redirect that energy into something creative, or redirect it into like resting or something that you know your body and your mind needs. So I love that. I love that. And to kind of, you know, bring this all full circle, I have two last questions for you. You recently tweeted that you are coming back to yourself.
Yeah.
As you are coming back to yourself, like how would you describe that self that you're coming back to?
Yeah, I remember when I tweeted that. I tweeted that last week, I think, and I was like in a deep cleaning mode. I was organizing. I was like, you know what? You're coming back to yourself yet again, and that is okay. And I think that was something that's really important for me to say, is that like I feel like we're constantly coming back to ourselves, and that's okay. It's not bad. It's not like you come back to yourself once and you're good. It's like, I wish, but we both know it's sometimes you got to come back to yourself multiple times. And for me, it's more of like coming back to myself, where like we're talking about like energy, like where I'm not directing that energy into something that makes me sad, or like being sad and being like really depressed and being really anxious. I'm coming back to myself where I'm confident. I'm trying my best, you know, every day. I'm trying to build the life that I want to live, and literally trusting myself that I'm like, yo, you could build the life that you want. Like it's literally within your grasp. Like you could do it. Like it's attainable. It might not be tomorrow, but it's still attainable. So yeah, coming back to myself as in like the person, you know, like my higher self, which is someone that's like, that just does it, you know, just do things, you know. That's like not scared to do it, you know, like Nike, just do it. But someone that also is healing, someone that also is like trying their best to literally like just not do the same cycles, you know, break the cycles, break the generational trauma, like all of that. Eating good, being healthy, doing some squats for your booty. You know? Being a great partner, being a great daughter, being a great friend, you know, obviously not holding yourself up way too high where like you can't attain it, but also, you know, providing space of allowing you to be human, like literally being like, it's okay if you have faults. That is okay. You don't have to be perfect. And I feel like that's also something that I've been coming back to myself of like, you know what, like it's cool. You messed up. It's cool. Take accountability, move on.
What is something that you're very proud of yourself for overcoming?
I'm honestly just super proud of myself that even in like my hardest days, even in my lowest days, I still pushed through. And I like never gave up. I'm not cry, but that's where I'm really like grateful for, is that like, yeah, I've been through a lot this year, and it's been a really interesting year. A lot of highs, a lot of lows, but I'm still here and I'm still trying.
Yes, girl. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a beautiful pride to take in yourself, and to like kind of end this conversation on, because I feel like this is where we started the conversation, is like you acknowledging your efforts and knowing that you're trying your best, and knowing that your best is going to show up differently every day. And that's enough, you know? So I love that. And I do want to say like that I'm very proud of you too. Like, I know we don't know each other like that, but I can tell that like it's just noticeable when like people are really finally kind of confronting themselves in ways where it's like it's coming from a very loving intentional space of like, all right, like I want me to be the best possible version of me. And I know that I need to heal these things. And I also want to attain these dreams and I need to believe in myself. And I want to come into them as like a healed version of me that I'm investing in. So I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Is there anything that you feel called to share? I want to hold space for that. But if not, it's all good.
Well, I mean, if I'm just gonna plug myself in, I am starting a brand. Hopefully, it'll go live within this the last remaining of this year and the beginning of next year, and it's called From the Block. So just stay tuned, and yeah, we'll see where that goes.
I'm glad that you brought that up because I actually had it written down here that you had in your bio from the block and from the block film. So I was like, seems like that's leading somewhere.
Yeah, From the Block is my brand that's gonna go live soon, and From the Block Films is actually my film account that my friend Jazz kind of was like, yo, what happened? Like, you're good at this. Like, why did you stop? I was like, I just got busy and I just kind of stopped. And she's like, no, you need to get back at it. And I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah. Yeah.
here's hoping to reviving my film era.
Yes. And reviving so many aspects of us that went into hiding but deserve to be out in the light.
I like that. I agree. I agree.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate you being vulnerable enough to like share your honesty and your truth with us.
Thank you so much for having me.